Hey everyone, I'm Mike from theparkprodigy.com, and on today's video, we're going to break down the absolute best time to go into the Universal Orlando theme parks. Now, if you've been watching our channel, you most likely already know what I'm going to be suggesting in this video. And again, you most likely have an idea that a lot of it is going to surround Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure, which is by far one of the most popular rides in all of Orlando, but specifically in the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. So if you are in the process of planning a Universal Orlando trip and you plan to go and visit the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, or really any of the main thrill rides in Universal that might have longer than normal wait times, just be sure to stick around to the end of this video as we're going to break down the best time to go to Universal Orlando. As always, I'm very excited, so let's go get started. Thank you again so much for checking out this video. Like I said, we are about to break down the absolute best time to visit Universal Orlando. Specifically, we'll break down the 3 parks, and you'll see there's really going to be 2 times that we'll recommend. The number one where we're going to start is always going to be our honest recommendation, even though, we will hear feedback like, hey, you could still have a great experience with going with option number 2, which we'll get into. However, for us, when we look at it, and you'll see, when we just look at it across the board, number 1 is always going to be the best time to visit Universal Orlando in our opinion. And jumping right in, when is the best time to visit Universal Orlando? And we would always say early in the morning, specifically for early park admission, if you can take advantage of that. Now, when we start to look at the pros and the cons, right? And again, a lot of families will say, hey, Mike, you could still go and you can have a great experience, and there will be, shorter wait times sometimes at night. Now, the reason why we personally always recommend to use early park admission or to rope drop and always start your days really as early as possible, especially if you're trying to figure out when is the best time to visit, is because you don't know what the Universal Park hours are going to be, or really we don't know. So I can't give you my recommendation to say, hey, show up at the parks at 5 o'clock at night and you'll be able to get on as many rides as possible. What if the parks close at 6 or 7 o'clock? And a lot of times at Universal Orlando specifically, during the slower times of year, and I would say at this point, probably like 3 to 4 months out of the year, that's going to be the case where the parks are going to close early, and then that's not good advice. On the flip side, though, by us recommending to show up and take advantage of early morning hours and early park admission, right? That's every day, and that is consistent. And our opinion, looking at wait times, you can consistently bank on the fact that a lot of families will sleep in and you'll be able to get on a ton of rides, especially if you do take advantage of early park admission. So that's why we always suggest it. That's why we suggest starting in the morning, or taking advantage of those morning hours. And again, in our opinion, when you show up bright and early, the crowds are typically lighter, which means shorter wait times for your favorite attractions. Plus, the other benefit that we see is the weather tends to be cooler in the morning, and this is really, really important in that hot Florida sun. Now, when we start to talk about early park admission, right, if you can get early park admission, always take advantage of early park admission, always. What I would say is if you do have early park admission, breaking it down for the 3 different parks, specifically starting over at Islands of Adventure Park, what you'll see is early park admission essentially allows you into the theme parks 1 hour before other park guests. What we recommend for Islands of Adventure is we would suggest to actually show up an hour before early park admission starts. Now, specifically, if you're trying to get onto Hagrid's, which is the really, really popular Harry Potter roller coaster, the reason why we always suggest showing up an hour before early park admission starts is, again, you'll see if you go and you read online, a lot of folks will say, I had early park admission, I showed up at 8 o'clock, it started at 8 o'clock, and I still waited an hour to get on this ride. Part of that is because this ride is so popular, you can't just show up, at the start time of early admission. You can. I still think that an hour to get onto this ride is relatively short compared to the typical wait times for this ride. But why we recommend showing up an hour before early park admission starts is you'll be some of the first guests into the park at that point in time. So that means you really are some of the first guests to get on this ride, and you'll get on it and just get it out of the way. The other way that I've spoken about this in our videos, the other way I look at it too is I would rather wait an hour to get into the park when the park isn't open yet and I'm technically not losing time by not going on other rides. And I'd rather wait that hour than, again, waiting an hour in the park when the rides are open because you're paying for that time essentially. So this is, in our opinion, the best way to do it. And then once you get Hagrid's out of the way, again, if you're into the thrill rides, go straight over to the Velocicoaster. And if you are into the thrill rides, just be sure to go and subscribe to our channel because we actually do have another video coming out after this breaking down all of the scariest rides over at Universal Orlando. So that is Islands of Adventure, guys. That is the best time to show up at Islands of Adventure. I would say an hour before early park admission starts. Of course, make sure you do have early park admission so you can enjoy it. Going over to Universal Studios Florida, it's not going to be as long of a wait. I would recommend showing up a half hour before early park admission starts. And the reason why it's not as popular is because it doesn't have Hagrid's and it doesn't have the Velocicoaster. There's specifically, the one main ride that everyone's trying to get on is going to be Harry Potter and the Escape from Gringotts. And what we have found is that, the crowds will typically just disperse a little bit more in this park. So you do have that extra, you don't have to show up as early as Islands of Adventure. For Volcano Bay, I would also recommend showing up at least 30 minutes before. Now, the other important thing that I would say is, when is the best time to go to Volcano Bay? If you're visiting during the really busy times of year, specifically spring break, and I would say early summer around like 4th of July, you do want to make sure that you get into Volcano Bay as early as possible. We haven't seen it that much lately, but Volcano Bay can fill to capacity, which means, as soon as they reach that capacity mark, no other guests can get into this park. So you could see, though, the benefit if you have early park admission or if you just show up extremely early to be some of the first guests in the park, you won't have that issue. And just another little quick tip and trick. Another reason why we always suggest showing up really early, and specifically if you do show up early, get those outdoor rides out of the way. The roller coasters are the ones that are coming to mind because, again, later in the day, those rides tend to be outdoors, so it's going to be hotter. And then the other thing that you do have to keep in mind is you do have to worry about, rain or thunderstorms later in the day. So just get them out of the way as early as possible in the morning so you don't have to worry about that, and you can kind of, focus on the indoor rides. All right, so moving over to number 2, right? So if you are not early risers, if your family doesn't want a rope drop, right, when is the best time of day to go to Universal Studios? Well, option number 2 would then be later at night, right? And again, just because when you think about, theme park vacations or family vacations, what we have found is after dinner time, we typically notice that a lot of families, specifically with younger kids, will start to go back to hotels, right? So this is another great time to try to get as many rides out of the way as possible. Now, we can look at the wait time data, and I don't disagree with families, or I don't disagree with people who say, it's better to go on Hagrid's, really late at night, right before the park closes. You can hop on that line and you'll be able to do it for under an hour. I don't disagree with that. It gets complicated for us, as we give suggestions to families, is there's no guarantee that that will be the case. And also, what if the ride goes down, later in the day? That could potentially happen. So, we always just find that it is the safer bet. And even let's say the ride goes down in the morning, well, now you still have the entire day to try to get back on this ride and plan around it. If the ride goes down at night, like, that is it. Unfortunately, you are out of luck, and we just don't feel comfortable giving or starting with that tip. But of course, not every family is the same, and so nighttime might work better for your family. Just understand the potential risks that come with that. So when you start looking at the average wait times, again, typically after 6 o'clock, the wait times will start to then trend back down. Now, the other cool thing is during the busier times of year, Universal might have the parks open a little bit later, and they'll have it open till 9, 10 o'clock at night. So, maybe you want to show up early in the morning, get as many rides out of the way, go back to your hotel, then come back, after 5, 6 o'clock at night, and then just get, a bunch of other rides out of the way with, relatively lower wait times. Typically what you always want to do, as you could tell, is you want to fade the middle of the day when possible. And again, what you could do too is you can even team up with a company like the Park Prodigy, and you come up with a park plan or a game plan, and you say, okay, all the rides with the highest average wait times we're going to hit in the morning. The other ones that we can't get out of the way in the morning, we're going to hit at night. And then really in the middle there, we're just going to try to hit all the rides that have, the lowest wait times, right? You'll really get the most out of your day just by kind of planning around. The other thing you could do too is, of course, if you don't want to go back to your hotel, you plan, you could go over to Mythos or over to City Walk for lunch. Of course, another great tip specifically for midday is make sure that you're hitting all those those indoor rides. You can get out of the sun and into the AC. And then, of course, you can go and check out some of the really fantastic Universal Orlando shows that they do have. Now, last but not least, what I will say is we get asked this question a lot, and that's why we're creating this video, right? If you were to ask me, when is the best time to visit Universal Orlando? Like, when is your favorite time to visit Universal Orlando? I absolutely would say that twilight, kind of right when the sun is going down, like the beginning of the evening, is our favorite time here at the Park Prodigy to go to the parks, and especially then, moving over to night, right? The lights are essentially, twinkling. I have twinkling in my notes. That's how my team described the lights. But the lights are twinkling. The atmosphere becomes truly magical, right? And specifically in the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, if you head over to Diagon Alley, it really is my personal favorite spot in the park, specifically at night. And so that is the list, everyone. That is that is the long way to answer when is the best time to visit Universal Orlando. As you'll see, there's not one size fits all. However, if we were to just say based on our opinion, every time we would go with early park admission, every time we would go with showing up early in the morning, and then you could plan around that. If you do not want to do that, of course, we would recommend then showing up after dinner, 5, 6 o'clock at night, when families do start to go back to their hotels. So I really hope that you did find this video helpful. And like I said, if you are in the process of planning a Universal Orlando trip and you do want more videos like this, just be sure to subscribe to our channel, as we have a lot more similar content coming out in the coming weeks. But I think that's all the time we have for today. Thank you guys again so much for checking out this video. Until next time, I will talk to you soon.